At 9:14 in the morning, a single missile appears on the USS Abraham Lincoln's SPY-6 radar, and the crew of the most powerful carrier in the world begins what they believe is a standard engagement. They are wrong about what it is. They are wrong about everything. The contact is bearing 047, range 190 kilometers, sea skimming, speed 890 kilometers per hour, altitude 9 meters above the water. The Aegis combat system begins building an intercept solution immediately. One contact, clean geometry, established procedure. Nothing about the tactical picture suggests this is anything other than what it appears to be. In the Abraham Lincoln's electronic warfare suite, Chief Petty Officer James Nash looks at the missile's guidance seeker signature on his passive sensor display and notices something that takes him 4 seconds to process. The seeker is open. Not locked, not narrowed onto the Abraham Lincoln's hull signature the way every anti-ship missile seeker he has ever watched narrows in terminal approach. Wide aperture, scanning, collecting emissions from every system in the formation simultaneously. The SPY-6 radar frequency, the Aegis fire control signal, the electronic warfare jamming frequencies, the Phalanx CIWS targeting radar, the SM-6 uplink protocol. A missile in terminal attack mode does not scan. It locks. It commits. It narrows everything it has onto the target because in terminal attack mode there is only one thing that matters, and that thing is the hull signature directly ahead. This missile is not in terminal attack mode. This missile is doing something Nash has never seen a missile do in 14 years of watching guidance systems on passive sensors. It is taking notes. He picks up the circuit to the Combat Information Center at 09:15. The seeker on this contact is in wide aperture collection mode. It is not targeting the ship. It is collecting our defensive emissions. I need someone to listen to me right now. Tactical Action Officer Lieutenant Commander Hassan Oe has 2 SM-6 interceptors already climbing toward the contact and a fire control solution running clean. He looks at the contact on his display. One missile. Standard geometry. The engagement is running exactly as it should. He tells Nash the engagement is active and asks him to stand by. At 09:16, the first SM-6 reaches its intercept point. The missile executes a 1.9-degree course correction and the interceptor detonates in empty air. The second SM-6 launches on an updated solution. The missile executes another correction, 2.3 degrees this time, and the second interceptor finds nothing. In the electronic warfare suite, Nash watches both corrections on his passive display and understands immediately what he is seeing. The missile did not execute those corrections to survive. It executed them to study. Each correction was the minimum movement required to make the SM-6 miss, not maximum evasion, minimum evasion, while keeping the seeker in wide aperture collection mode long enough to record the complete SM-6 intercept geometry, the exact approach angle, the exact terminal phase, the exact moment of detonation relative to the missile's position. It was letting the SM-6s miss on purpose while it watched how they worked. Nash reports this at 09:17. He tells Oe the missile deliberately allowed both SM-6s to miss. He tells him the seeker is still in collection mode. He tells him the missile is not attacking the ship. Oe activates the broadband jamming suite at 09:17. The missile registers the jamming signal, logs the frequency, and continues inbound. The jamming has no effect. Nash watches it log the jamming frequency on his passive display in real time. It is recording everything. Every frequency, every signal, every defensive action the formation takes is being cataloged by a guidance system specifically designed to learn. At 9:19, the Phalanx activates as the contact enters its engagement envelope. The fire control radar locks onto the missile at 3.1 nautical miles. The missile registers the Phalanx radar frequency, logs it, and executes a terminal maneuver. Not to defeat the Phalanx. Nash can see this on his display, but to force the Phalanx to fire at a specific geometry while the missile's seeker records the gun's traverse rate, firing cycle, and round dispersion pattern. The phalanx fires. The burst reaches the intercept point. The missile has already moved 14 meters to the left of the burst center. Not because it got lucky, because it calculated exactly where the burst would be and positioned itself 14 meters outside it. The missile flies through the formation, past the Abraham Lincoln, past the escorts, into open ocean on bearing 267. The contact disappears from the tactical display at 0922. In the Combat Information Center, OA marks the engagement complete. Possible miss or possible self-destruct beyond radar range. Battle stations begin standing down. The tactical display shows nothing inbound. The crew breathes. Nash does not breathe. He is watching bearing 267 on his passive sensors. The bearing the missile flew into. The direction it went when it passed through the formation. And he is thinking about everything the seeker collected during 8 minutes and 11 seconds of wide aperture scanning. The SM-6 intercept geometry, both approaches, both detonation points, both missed distances. The jamming frequencies. Every frequency the formation's electronic warfare suite transmitted. The phalanx fire control radar frequency, the gun's traverse rate, the firing cycle, the round dispersion pattern. The Spy-6 radar emission profile, the Aegis fire control uplink protocol, the formation's complete electronic order of battle, everything Iran needed to know to defeat every defensive system on the Abraham Lincoln, collected in a single pass and transmitted back to the launch platform in real time. And now, the missile knows everything. And somewhere on bearing 267, it is turning around. Nash picks up the circuit to OA at 923. The missile is coming back. It collected our defensive emissions on the first pass. It is going to execute a second attack using everything it just learned. It will be back on radar in approximately 60 to 90 seconds. Every intercept we attempt on the second pass will fail because the missile already knows how we intercept. I need weapons free on the launch platform, bearing 031. I have the position. I have had it since 914. Hey, looks at his display. Empty. Nothing inbound. Battle stations standing down. A chief petty officer telling him a missile that just flew through the formation and disappeared is coming back. He tells Nash his assessment has been logged and asks him to stand by. Nash looks at his display, at bearing 267, at the passive sensor readings telling him the missile's data link is still transmitting, still connected to its launch platform, still receiving position updates on the Abraham Lincoln. Still active. Still coming. He starts building something. Not a jamming solution. The missile has already shifted away from every jamming frequency the formation transmitted on the first pass. He cannot jam what it already knows to avoid. Something different. Something the missile doesn't know to avoid because it hasn't seen it yet. The missile's data link, the signal connecting it to its launch platform throughout its entire flight, operates on a specific encrypted frequency. The same frequency it used to transmit its first pass reconnaissance data. The same frequency it is now using to receive real-time position updates on the Abraham Lincoln for the second pass. Nash had identified that frequency at 9:14 and 33 seconds. 11 seconds after the contact first appeared on radar. He had been building a spoofed position signal on that frequency for the last 9 minutes. Not jamming. Replacing. A false transmission carrying false coordinates for the Abraham Lincoln, 600 meters to the left of where the carrier actually is, formatted to pass every authentication check the missile's guidance computer would run against it. He needed one thing. For the missile to come back so he could transmit into an active data link. At 0923 and 47 seconds, the contact reappears on the Spy-6 radar, bearing 267. Inbound. Range 160 kilometers. Speed 890 kilometers per hour. Coming back. And now, the seeker is narrow. Now it is locked. Now it is fully committed to the Abraham Lincoln's hull signature with a targeting solution built from 8 minutes and 11 seconds of first-pass data collection. Not scanning anymore, not taking notes, attacking with everything it learned. Oe looks at his display. The contact is real. It is inbound. His battle stations are half stood down, and his crew is reassuming positions, and his fire control solutions need to be rebuilt from scratch for a contact coming from the opposite direction. He authorizes 4 SM-6 interceptors at 0924. The fire control solutions build in 31 seconds and the interceptors launch. The missile receives the SM-6 launch data and executes the first evasive maneuver. Not a random correction. The exact correction calculated from the SM-6 intercept geometry it observed and recorded on the first pass. It knows the SM-6's approach angle. It knows the terminal phase timing. It moves to the specific position the SM-6's fire control solution cannot compensate for in the time available. The first SM-6 detonates 380 meters from the missile. The second, 290 meters. The third, 140 meters. Closer. But the missile has already calculated that 140 meters is outside the SM-6's fragmentation lethal radius, and moved accordingly. The fourth SM-6 is the closest yet, detonating 61 meters from the airframe. But the missile had calculated the fourth intercept geometry from the first 3, and executed a final correction that placed it 61 meters outside the burst pattern. 4 misses, each one closer than the last. None close enough, because the missile had seen how SM-6's work and built a specific answer to each one. OA activates the broadband jamming suite at 0926. The missile is already operating on a frequency outside every band the jamming suite transmitted on the first pass. The jamming suite floods frequencies the missile abandoned 9 minutes ago. The missile doesn't register the jamming at all. The phalanx activates at 0927 as the contact enters its engagement envelope. The fire control radar locks onto the missile. The missile knows this radar. It recorded the frequency, the traverse rate, and the firing cycle on the first pass. It executes the terminal maneuver it calculated from that data, moving faster than the gun can traverse between acquisition and firing, positioning itself in the specific geometry where the phalanx round dispersion pattern cannot achieve a lethal hit. The phalanx fires. The burst reaches the intercept point. The missile is 17 meters outside the lethal fragmentation radius. Not by chance, by calculation. 2 minutes and 11 seconds to impact. Every conventional defense exhausted. Every intercept failed. Not because the missile was faster or harder to track, but because the missile had already seen every defense once and built a specific answer to each one during 8 minutes and 11 seconds of first-pass reconnaissance. The Combat Information Center is silent. Rear Admiral James Carver looks at his tactical display for 4 seconds. Then he picks up the all-hands circuit. All hands brace for impact. Nash transmits at 0928. He does not ask for authorization. There is no time for authorization. He transmits the spoofed position signal directly into the missile's active data link on the frequency he identified 11 seconds after the contact first appeared. The false coordinates he has been building for 9 minutes and 4 seconds, carrying one piece of information. The Abraham Lincoln's position, 600 meters to the left of where the carrier actually is. The transmission lasts 0.4 seconds. The missile receives the updated coordinates at 0928 and does exactly what it was designed to do. It trusted its data link. Its guidance computer processed the new position, calculated the course correction required to shift its impact point, and executed at Mach 0.8 with 90 seconds to impact. 600 meters of lateral displacement requires a 4.1 degree course correction. The missile banks hard to port, away from the Abraham Lincoln, toward the false position Nash's spoof signal had placed in open ocean 600 meters off the carrier's port bow. In the Combat Information Center, OA watches the contact curve away from the formation on his tactical display. He stands completely still for 3 seconds. At 9:29, the missile impacted the Arabian Sea 600 meters off the Abraham Lincoln's port bow. The warhead detonated on water impact. The explosion sent a column of white water 380 feet into the air. The pressure wave expanded outward and hit the Abraham Lincoln's hull simultaneously with the pressure wave from the air blast. A double impact that threw crew members off their feet in compartments 400 meters from the impact point, cracked 3 windows on the bridge, and caused a momentary power fluctuation in the forward compartments. 600 meters. The closest the missile came to the hull. It had spent 8 minutes studying. Nothing touched the carrier. In the Combat Information Center, nobody spoke for 5 seconds. Then Carver picked up the circuit to Nash's position. "Chief Nash, walk me through what just happened." Nash looked at his passive sensor display. At the wide aperture seeker signature, he had identified at 0914 and 33 seconds. At the data link frequency he had been collecting since the moment the contact appeared. At the spoofed position signal he had been building for 9 minutes and 4 seconds while 4 SM-6 missed, and the jamming suite found nothing to jam and the phalanx fired into empty air. "Sir, the missile's first pass was a reconnaissance mission. It collected our complete defensive emissions profile and transmitted the data to its launch platform in real time. The second pass used that data to defeat every intercept we attempted. I identified the data link frequency on the first pass and fed it false position coordinates 90 seconds before impact." Carver was quiet for 4 seconds. Then, "How long have you had the launch platform position?" "Sir, I have had it for 24 minutes. Carver did not respond to that for a moment. Then, he picked up the strike authorization circuit. The missile's launch platform had been transmitting continuously on the data link frequency since 0914, receiving first-pass reconnaissance data, sending second-pass position updates, maintaining the connection Nash had been triangulating for 24 minutes and 11 seconds. The position was fixed to within 14 meters on a platform that had not moved since the missile launched. Iranian mobile launch doctrine is shoot and relocate immediately. The platform's crew had been trained to move the moment the missile cleared the rail. They had not moved because they were receiving and processing 8 minutes of first-pass reconnaissance data in real time, and the data was too valuable to interrupt by relocating. They stayed to watch their missile work. 2 FA-18Fs released 4 GBU 31 JDAM guided bombs from 28,000 feet at 0932. Nash's targeting coordinates, refined across 24 minutes of continuous triangulation to 14-meter accuracy, loaded into each weapon's GPS guidance system at the moment of release. The first bomb impacted at 0933 and 44 seconds. The second 3 seconds later. The third and second 3 seconds later. The third and fourth found the data link transmission equipment and the targeting systems that had spent months developing the missile's reconnaissance attack doctrine. The launch platform, the crew, and Iran's ability to execute another reconnaissance attack from that position ceased to exist at 9:33 and 51 seconds. Nash transmitted the missile's data link frequency to every EA-18G Growler in theater at 0934. 4 Growlers immediately began transmitting focused spoofed position signals on that frequency across their entire operational sectors. Every missile Iran had left that relied on the same data link for position updates was now receiving false coordinates. Every second-pass attack Iran had planned against U.S. naval assets in the theater was now going to miss by exactly as far as the false positions placed their targets. Iran's most sophisticated missile, permanently blinded by the same frequency Nash had identified 11 seconds after it first appeared on radar. In the electronic warfare suite, Nash wrote his engagement log in 2 sentences. Iran fired a missile that studied us on the first pass and came back, knowing how to defeat everything we had. We fed it the wrong address. Iran fired its most terrifying weapon at the USS Abraham Lincoln. A weapon that didn't try to hit the carrier on its first pass. A weapon that flew through the entire formation, collected everything it needed to know, turned around, and came back with a complete answer to every defense the most advanced carrier strike group in the world could deploy. It defeated 4 SM-6 interceptors. It defeated broadband jamming. It defeated the phalanx. It came back knowing exactly how to beat everything. And it missed by 600 meters because a chief petty officer noticed the seeker was scanning instead of locking 11 seconds after the contact appeared on radar, and spent 9 minutes and 4 seconds building a solution for an attack that hadn't started yet. America's response permanently blinded every missile of that type Iran has left. And the launch platform that spent months developing the most sophisticated reconnaissance attack ever attempted against a US carrier had 24 minutes and 11 seconds to escape what was coming. It stayed to watch its missile work. That was the last mistake it ever made. The lesson Iran took home from the Arabian Sea that morning was the one it least wanted to learn. The most dangerous sensor on the most powerful carrier in the world is not the system that tracks the missile. It is the chief petty officer who understood what the missile was doing before it finished doing it.